Hey guys, welcome back to Room for Conversation. Excuse me, real quick. Okay, so first I want to say thank you guys to all the support that you guys showed in my last video. I really appreciate it. All the messages, the texts, my friends who are constantly uplifting me. I really appreciate you guys. Like, that goes without saying. So this is gonna be another brief video. I want to talk about social workers today. And the reason why is because in my last video, I talked about, me not getting into a foster home that wanted me until I was about 17. So I just want to give like a little backstory about that. And I also want to kind of highlight some things that I think is important. And, if you're in foster care, listen up, because this can help you. You know what I'm saying? Like, this can help you. So when I was 16, I got discharged from an RTC, and I was going back into the community, into a foster home. And the foster home I was in Yonkers. That didn't work out. I was cutting school. I kept going back to the campus because I lived on that campus for about 2.5 years, so I went from having just turned like 13 to being 16 on that campus. And that's a very tumultuous, let me say that, sorry. That's a very tumultuous time in a young lady's life. And a lot had happened to me while I was on campus, and I'll get into that in another video or whatever. But yeah, so after some issues or whatever, I moved to a foster home in Queens, and I got a new social worker. And I'm not gonna say her name because I guess I'm at the point where I've forgiven her for what she did. But I did have a social worker who stayed with me from 16 until 21. And this lady was just not good for me in the long run. They put me in the adoption unit because my mother did go to court when I was 10, and she told the judge that she didn't want me anymore. She wanted my godmother to adopt me, so she relinquished her rights. I'm the only child who she gave up her rights to that was in foster care. And yeah, so I was in the adoption unit because that's where my social worker was. But it was just kind of clear at that point that I was just not going to get adopted. I was already 16. So I was in Queens in a foster home. And it's funny enough, my social worker, she lived in the same projects that I was living in. I lived in Queensbridge, where Nasty Nas is from. You heard? Now let me stop. But yeah, I lived in Queensbridge or whatever. And I liked living in Long Island City. I went to Roosevelt High. That was in Yonkers, but then I transferred to LIC High, which was like a couple of blocks from where I lived. So I would walk to school. There was like a library on the way. I would go to the library and stuff like that. I still had my friends from campus. I had another friend from campus who got discharged, and she lived in Queens or whatever, but she lived further down. But I would still meet up with her and hang out. I was just doing me. I really, I went to Long Island City High, but I just didn't fit in. Well, not that I didn't fit in. I didn't give it enough time. But anyway, so I had this social worker, and in this foster home I was in Queens, it was very difficult. Like, I was with an old lady who she was difficult. I do have my feelings about senior citizens being foster parents, because I feel like if you're going to be a foster parent who takes in teens, you should be able to keep up with that teenager, because teenagers are very active. It's a lot, they're coming into their age. They're kind of like in their prime a little bit. They're figuring out who they are, especially if you're in foster care. You might have depressed teens and stuff like that. It's a lot. It's a lot of emotional baggage. And I feel like if you're a senior citizen, you're at that point where, you basically like at the end of your life. I'm not trying to be funny, but when you're a senior citizen, that's a time for you to relax, and enjoy life. You struggled enough. You went through a lot. Just enjoy the end of your life. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to be running after kids. But anyway, so yeah, I used to get into fights with this old lady all the time. Like, she would try to lock me out. She would try to like break into my room and stuff like that. And ma'am, like, you're wilding. Try to feed me cabbage soup all the time. Like, am I in an orphanage? Like, what is going on here? I don't want that. And I don't want to talk bad about this lady because, like I said, she was an old lady. But anyway, I moved out of that home because me and her got into it so much that I had to be checked into a mental hospital because I'm the type of person where it's just like, I don't really address things the way I should, to the point where it's like things boil up and I take a lot from people. And when I get to that breaking point, all hell is going to break loose, you know? But I will say, while I was in the mental hospital, like, she did come check me. She would bring me quarters so I could make phone calls and stuff. She would bring me clothes, books. She did, like, visit me. And I believe that, you know, maybe in her heart that she wanted the best for me, but it was just not a good match because I'm very headstrong. She was very headstrong, and it just wasn't going to work out. So now I had the social worker, and I'm gonna call her Tanya. So Tanya, you know, me and her started getting close or whatever, and she was always just very interested in, like, my life story. She always wanted to hear, you know, stories about my grandmother, like my early life. I would talk about my godparents and stuff like that. And she knew this lady who was a foster parent who was from my neighborhood, who I knew all my life. And I actually stayed with this lady, like, around the time my grandmother died. But, you know, I didn't know that on the other end, she was, like, talking to this lady about me. This lady was telling her stuff about me. And this lady have not seen me in mad long. Like, ma'am, I have an issue with people and gossip. Like, I wish people would really just shut the fuck up. Because, honestly, like, adults who sit there and gossip about children, something is wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. I'm sorry. And this lady would just, like, run her mouth about me, telling my social worker all type of stuff about me. And it's just like, baby girl, you knew me when I was 10 years old. This is 6 years later. And on top of that, like, you don't really know me as a person. You don't really know anything about my family. Like, she was close to my dad. My dad was, like, the super in her building. But mind your business. Like, that was not your place for you to be telling this lady whatever family business you was telling her. It was not your place. And you did not think about how that would affect me or my siblings. You didn't think about the repercussions that would happen by you running your mouth. And I never addressed that because it really slipped my mind. But I'm going to just say that now. Some of y'all need to mind your business. Like, it costs nothing to keep your mouth closed. Anyway. So, yeah, she always wanted to know, like, about my past. She would ask me questions about my dad and stuff like that. So around this time, I was 16. And my dad, he gave me, like, a photo album that had a picture of my grandmother and me in it and stuff like that. And she stole a picture of me and my grandmother out of my photo album. And I didn't know she did it until I took the photo album back to my dad or whatever. Because my dad was like, you know, I'm giving you... My dad, he kept everything, that had belonged to my grandmother. Like, it's a little creepy, but he even kept her teeth. So my dad had a lot of my grandmother's stuff in his new apartment, and he gave me those pictures, and he was just like, you know, I'm trusting you with these. Please don't lose them. I'm giving it to you because I know that you need it. Like, you know, my dad, he just knew what I was going through, so he gave me the pictures, and she stole a picture out of my photo album. And my dad, he was like, it's a picture missing. I'm like, what? He's like, it's a picture missing. Like, it's a picture of you and your grandmother. It's missing. What happened? And I'm just telling my dad, like, I don't know. He's like, did you show anybody the photo album? Did you give it to, like, your brother or your sister? I was like, no, because I didn't even see them at that point yet. I didn't see them in a while, actually. I'm like, nah, I didn't give it to them. And I was like, the only person I showed it to was Tanya. And he was like, oh, well, you need to ask her, like, what happened to that picture, because you need to get that picture back, or I'm taking this photo album from you, because that's irresponsible, Niecy. Like, you're not, you know, how dads are. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask her. Damn. So I asked her, and she was like, yeah, I took it. I took the picture because, you know, you talk about your grandmother so gracefully, and that's the only thing that I really ever hear you talk about with, like, passion and stuff like that. And, you know, that picture just touched me. So I just, you know, I was hoping you would let me keep it. That lady never gave me that picture back. I still don't have that picture to this day. That's a fact. So, anyway, So then, years go by. Not years go by. Let me stop. So after I get out the mental hospital, I get moved into a foster home in Bed-Stuy. And Bed-Stuy is a very big chapter in my life. I don't really want to talk. I'm smiling and stuff like that, but it was just too crazy. Like, I don't know why I was having all these adventures. Like, what? But anyway, I moved into Bed-Stuy, whatever, into a foster home. And I stayed there for about like maybe like a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then I left. But during this time I got closer with my social worker and stuff like that. And in between me moving into foster homes, this is when I started to notice that she really didn't have the best for me. So after I got to Canarsie, I told y'all about that story already when Yo-Yo wanted to adopt me on the spot. So after I got to that foster home and things didn't work out with me and Yo-Yo, I left. And I believe I went to the Bronx after then. And when I went to the Bronx, they put me in a foster home with 2 foster parents who did not speak English. And I don't speak Spanish. And so, off rip, there's a disconnect. We have a language barrier. And I had my foster sister, who's still my little sister to this day, Joanne. She lived with us and she was like the communicator. But that's really not her job to do that because she's growing up as well. She doesn't have time to, translate. And, that's hectic. That's very like, no child should, be translating that way. That's not appropriate. You know what I'm saying? It's not fair either. But Joanne would translate, and that foster home was nasty. Like, it was rats and it was mice in there. They kept pigeons. I'm sorry, but like, even in the living room, and people who came to the house know I'm not lying, in their living room they had a nest of pigeons. It was bird shit everywhere. Sorry, let me stop. I'm going off hand. Anyway, so I'm in the Bronx or whatever, and the foster home in Canarsie with Yo-Yo, me and Yo-Yo, we was really close. Like, I love Yo-Yo to this day. And I think, me choosing to leave was not Yo-Yo kicking me out. Let me just make that very clear. Yo-Yo never kicked me out. An ultimatum was given, and she chose the opposite. I'm gonna say that. But it was never like, basically what she was saying to me was like, Yo-Yo really didn't want anything from me, but she just wanted me to go to school, and she wanted me to just get it together. She wanted me to, be the best person I could be. But there was an obstacle in the house. I'm not going to say exactly what it is. That obstacle needed more attention than I did. And just like with most teenagers, people always choose the younger. Oh shit, I gave it away. Fuck it. People always choose like the younger kids. You know what I'm saying? They always choose the younger kids. And my ultimatum was like, well, you're either gonna keep this little girl or you're gonna keep me. It can't be both of us, because that little girl, she was just out of control. She was out of control. Like, still out of control to this day. Like, little girl, like, just out of control. I don't know what else to say about it. Like, she was just way too grown. She was just doing too much and stuff. And it got to a point where I was just like, I can't be in that house with her, because I didn't know if I was gonna be able to keep my hands off her after a while, because she was just doing too much. But that girl had a lot of issues. She was on medication, and I feel like Yo-Yo felt an obligation more to her than she did to me. So I chose to leave. And I think that it really hurt Yo-Yo's feelings that I chose it. I don't think she wanted to get rid of me. But it's hard to ask someone to... It's hard to ask a child, you know what I'm saying, to just understand where an adult is coming from. And to me, I couldn't. I still can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the first time that I had an adult choose another child or their child over me. That's happened to me all my life. So when she did that, I was like, oh, fuck it. Like, I was pissed off. I'm not gonna lie, I was very hurt. I know Yo-Yo was hurt too. But we did make up. And this is kind of like when I started to notice that my social worker was no good for me. Yo-Yo wanted to get me back. So we went to the agency or whatever, and we talked about it. And Yo-Yo was like, of course I'll take her back. Yo-Yo was trying to get me back. I wanted to go back, and my social worker blocked it. She said, no, that home is not good for her. No. Like, basically saying, like, no, you can't go back. Like, you had your chance. Yo-Yo had her chance. She's no good for you. You don't need to go back. But that was the wrong decision to make. It was wrong. And I didn't realize, well, it was said to me like, you need a new social worker because your social worker is way too involved in your personal life. She's way too attached. She's too attached to the point where she's making decisions for you without talking to you about it, and it's affecting you, and not in a good way. Now, I'm gonna pause this story right here, and I'm gonna just say this. When it comes to having a social worker or a case planner in foster care, you want someone who's involved and you want somebody who truly cares about you. But you also need someone who understands that there's boundaries. There's boundaries. You cannot just go around getting attached to the point where you're so selfish with a child that you're blocking their personal relationship with their foster parents. You're being very detrimental to that child's growth. You're not doing the kid no favors. What you're doing is isolating them, and you're isolating them knowing that when it gets to that point where they need those connections, they don't have it, and you can't provide it. You can't provide it, and you're not going to provide it. You don't want to provide it, and it's very selfish, and it's hateful. It's hateful. And she was very hateful, and I saw her true colors, and this is someone who at the time, like, I cared about her and stuff. Like, we would have our up and downs. We would argue. I would curse her the fuck out when I felt she was overstepping her boundaries and stuff like that. And we would get into it. But I didn't think that this lady would be building up so much animosity and hate for me that she would try to hurt me, and she did. And she succeeded. And I didn't have any protection. So she blocked me from going back to Yo-Yo, and like, moving on. When I got to the foster home in the Bronx, I got a kidney infection. I almost died when I was like 17, 18. Was I 19? I think I was like 19 at this time when I was in the Bronx, and I got a kidney infection and I almost died. I was in a hospital. My sister Jennifer came to visit me and stuff, and I had to, I was in the hospital for so long, I had to learn how to walk again. That kidney infection almost took me out. When I got the kidney infection, it's so crazy because I was in a job training program, and one day I was on a train with one of my friends who was pregnant in a job training program, and my head was killing me. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I thought I was gonna pass out. And we on a train, and I'm just like, I was hot and cold at the same time, and I went to the ER, and when I got to the ER, they isolated me, and they was like, your fever is like 108.9. Like, you could die at any moment. Like, your fever is way too high. And they was like, when people come in here with a fever like that, we isolate them because that's a sign of like AIDS or something like that. And I was like, what the fuck? What you mean? What? I'm panicking now. I'm going crazy. Like, what? She's like, no. I'm just saying that it's protocol that we isolate you because we really only see situations like that for young people who who contracted AIDS and stuff like that. So I'm panicking. I'm like, I'm crying and shit. I'm like, oh, like what? I'm going crazy. But I didn't have AIDS. I don't have AIDS. I don't have HIV. I don't have anything. I had a kidney infection that I caught from my foster mother. Now, you would think that being in an agency, if you contract an infection from your foster parent, that they would remove you. They did not remove me, right? And this lady was so sick, she would leave like blood droplets on the toilet. Like, she had something was wrong with her kidneys and stuff like that, and it affected me. I don't know if it was something that she was eating, or I don't really know the scientific terms behind it, but whatever she was going through contracted to me. And I was in the hospital for so long. I had to get 4 blood transfusions. I'm already anemic. I already have low iron and stuff like that. And so it was just a lot. I was in the hospital. Now, while I'm in the hospital, at the same time, I'm 19. So, my housing is supposed to be coming through. I'm supposed to be getting a job and stuff. And I got the interview for housing, but I'm in the hospital laid up. I can't go nowhere. So I said to my social worker, she calling me like, oh, you have an appointment here. Like, bitch, I'm in the hospital. I can't go there. I'm not going to be able to make it. Can you just reschedule it? She's like, no, I'm not rescheduling it. You need to call and do that. Call who? Who am I? I don't know who to call. And I'm in the hospital. Why you just can't reschedule it? It's my housing. She's like, oh, well, you just gonna miss it. I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, are you serious? Like, arguing with her. I'm laid up in the hospital, half past dead, arguing with this lady about my housing when I was 19. And she's like, arguing with me or whatever. Like, I'm tired of doing things for you. You're a social worker. This is your job. You're supposed to advocate. What are you talking about right now? Like, what are you talking about? You don't want to do your job? So give me a new social worker who will do it. Why? I'm laid up in the hospital and you're forcing me to strain myself to argue with you. And it's not fair. It's not fair. So I missed that housing appointment, and she lied and said that she did reschedule, but she never rescheduled. And they deaded that application. If you know anything about NYCHA, like, they deaded that whole application. So right now I had nothing in the system. And then she lied and said that she resubmitted my application or whatever. So then by the time I was 21, I would have got like my next interview. She lied and said she did it. And I'm going to fast forward to my very last foster home. Excuse me, y'all. I got contacts in, so my eyes are like a little dry sometimes. All right, so I'm going to fast forward to my last foster home. When I finally turned 21, we started realizing that housing was not coming. The agency did not double check behind this lady work. And it was discovered that she kept my housing application on her desk for 2.5 years. So when they redid the housing application, she never submitted it. She kept the application on her desk. And I had no housing. I was going to be homeless. And at this point, I had just gotten into like Queensborough College. You know, I'm 21. I got my GED already. I'm about to start school. I believe that I had a job, or I was in the middle of getting a job or something like that. I forgot. But her last visit, she came to, like, all right, let me back up. So in my last foster home, I'm not going to say that me and my foster mother at the time, her name was Felicia. I'm not going to say me and Felicia had the best relationship. We didn't. But it wasn't bad. Like, I definitely care about Felicia. I feel that she cared about me. But it wasn't like me and Yo-Yo, you know? But Felicia does care about the kids that she has in her home. It's just different. I would say that I don't want to say anything bad about Felicia. I don't have anything bad to say about Felicia, actually. Now, let me not say I don't have anything bad to say about Felicia, because what I will say is that Felicia's very easygoing. She's calm, and she's one of those people, like, you don't really know what she's thinking or how much she cares unless she tells. I'm gonna say me and Felicia are alike. Like, not that we're not emotional, but you're not gonna see the emotions. Like, that's what it was, you know? So while you might be thinking that, you know, she don't care or something like that, she actually cares a lot, you know? And there was some disagreements between me and Felicia, but the whole time I was in Felicia's house, like, my social worker kept interfering with my relationship with Felicia. So when you're in a foster home, you know, regardless if it's good or bad, well, let me say if it's good. If it's a good foster home, you need to have that type of relationship with your foster parent where you can feel comfortable with them and you guys can communicate. My social worker did everything in her power to make sure that me and Felicia did not connect. She would be in my ear. She would talk bad about Felicia. I really feel like she was jealous of her because Felicia is young. She's beautiful. She's successful. She's cool. She's down to earth. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to lie. Like, Felicia, like I said, I'm not going to say that we, like, had an issue. It's just that we're kind of alike. I know that now that I'm grown, but I see a lot of, like, my mannerisms. I see it as, when I think about Felicia, I see that in her too. So it's not, you know, we're not overly emotional, but that doesn't mean that we don't care. You know, the care is there, but I feel like Felicia always approached things from a very logical standpoint. She's gonna be logical with you, and she's gonna be straight up with you. She's not gonna sugarcoat anything with you. She's not gonna hold your hand. You're not a baby. And she was right about her approach, period. She was right. So my social worker, like, I feel like she was very jealous of Felicia. She did not like Felicia. She didn't like that Felicia was young. She didn't like that Felicia would always call the agency if there was a problem with the money and stuff like that. She didn't like that Felicia knew her rights. She did not like that Felicia would advocate. My social worker thought that, you know, Felicia should just shut up. And Felicia was not doing that. So you're not going to shut her up. But Felicia home was good for me. Like, we gave her hell. I'm not going to say we gave her a lot of hell, but it was, you know, issues and stuff like that. I didn't always do the right thing and stuff like that, but Felicia always gave me chances. She was honest. And she, you know, I had a connection with her daughter. Her daughter's beautiful. I love Paris. There were some things that I didn't like, but you're not gonna like everything, you know, and it is what it is. That's old stuff. But yeah, so, you know, the most dangerous thing you could do as a social worker is step in the middle of a foster parent trying to parent their child. Because even though I'm 19, 20, 21 at this point, Felicia's the parent. She's the parent. She's the parent, ma'am. She's the parent. And when she's being a mother, you need to let her mother. You cannot keep interfering. Like, that's the boundary of a social worker that I feel that people, like, if you're going to be a social worker, you need to understand that there's boundaries. And for your client who's in a foster home, you could care about that child all you want, but you should not be interfering in the middle of a foster parent parenting their kid. Because if I'm in Felicia's house, I'm her daughter. Let the mother handle her daughter. Foster mother, foster daughter. Only thing that's different is the foster part. But you're interfering with her parenting, and you're doing things that's detrimental to her connection with the kids that's in her house. Now, Felicia's not a stay-at-home mom. She worked, she had a career, she made her money, she lived her life. Her daughter was on the right track. Paris is right. So this is someone who knows what she's doing when it comes to children. She had her own child. Her child, very smart. Paris is independent. When I met Paris, she was like 14. And she was already independent, had her own mind. Very smart girl, you know? So Felicia knew what she was doing. So let her parent. You know, if it's her job to get these kids on the right track to be independent, let Felicia do what the fuck Felicia gotta do, you know? And my social worker was very jealous of that. And I think she got jealous because she started to see the influence that Felicia had on me. And she did. I'm not gonna lie. Like, when it comes to like hard work and stuff like that, that was not me when I was younger. It wasn't. I was lazy as hell. But being in Felicia's house, and especially now that I'm also, you know, I'm going to my 30s, I work hard. I take things serious. And I feel like not saying that I didn't have that with Yo-Yo, but it just didn't hit me yet. So Yo-Yo, Felicia, very independent women who work extremely hard. But the influence that Felicia had on me was, you know, I'm not going to tell you yes. And she didn't. And I left her house and I was homeless, and it hurt. But now that I'm older and I've worked hard, you know, I've gotten my degree, I'm still working on my stability. I'm not homeless anymore and stuff like that. But, you know, one thing that Felicia says to me is, listen, the best thing I could do for you is tell you no. And she was right. She was right. I'm trying not to get emotional, but she was right. She didn't tell me yes all the time. She started telling me no. And I learned the power of no. And that's a whole different, you know, story. But listen, if you want somebody to learn how to be independent, tell them no. Because I work hard. I work hard for everything that I have. I take care of myself now. And that's something that even before I left Felicia's house, when I was in her care, this is a woman who, if she wanted to, she wouldn't, you know, she could lay up and just be somebody's wife. She's beautiful, you know. I'm pretty sure she could have anybody she want. But this is a woman who gets up, she works hard, takes care of her child. The influence is there. A strong, black, hard-working woman, okay? That's what I have to say about Felicia. And that inspired me in the long run. It didn't inspire me right there when it was happening, because I was mad as fuck. But I see the value in what she was doing. And she gave me the greatest gift that I feel you could give a young black woman who needs a reality check. My social worker wanted to baby me. And this last visit, my social worker came to our house and she just she showed her true colors. She came in there and she said, we was on the living room and Felicia was just going off because she's like, how could y'all do that to her? Y'all don't want to give her no extensions and stuff like that. I didn't have housing. Felicia's going off or whatever. She's upset. And my social worker turned around and said to me and Felicia, she said, I was waiting for this day. I cannot wait for Shaniqua to be homeless and experience the same life that her mother experienced. You're going to be a prostitute. That's what she said. I lie to you not. She basically said, like, you're not going to do nothing with your life. You're going to be nothing. You're going to be nothing. And I can't wait to see you fail. That was her message. And while she was doing that, Felicia went off. She kicked her out the house. And when she was leaving the house, my foster brother was driving home or whatever. And he just heard, I guess, the commotion and stuff like that. And he was coming upstairs and, he joined in like, that's disrespectful. You don't say that to nobody. You don't say that to nobody. The dog is barking and stuff like that. And this lady went back to the agency and told them that we sicked a Pomeranian on her. And I told them what happened. I told them everything that she said to me. And they didn't do anything. And excuse me for getting emotional, but like, if you're in foster care, people are going to fail you. Excuse me. People are going to fail you, okay? You're going to have people who are going to be against you because they see you and they see what you could be. And they're threatened by that. I had someone who let me say this. Between me, my brother, and my sister in foster care, I had it the worst. Nobody went through. They didn't go through what I went through. Okay? I had it the worst. Okay? I had to deal with being raped. I had to deal with sexual assault from staff. I had to deal with a lot. Okay? I've been through a lot. But one thing I've never done, I've never sold myself. I've never had to give a sexual favor for a place to stay. And in the long run, God protected me. I was covered, okay? You have to be vigilant about yourself being in foster care, because there's going to be people who are going to fight so hard to block you for no reason. I'm a kid who was abandoned. And the world is so cold. I didn't get sympathy for that. For 7 years, I didn't have anybody who ever treated me like a person until I got to Yo-Yo's house. I didn't have anybody invest in me until I met Yo-Yo and until I met Felicia. You're going to have pivotal moments while you're in foster care. And sometimes they're not always good. But part of being, you have to be aware of who you allow in your circle, because my social worker was with me from the age of 16 until 21. And when I think about, when you learn about, when you learn about child development and stuff like that, 16 to 21 is a very weird stage. This is a stage where, you graduate in high school, you're graduating or you're going to high school, you're going to college, you're, becoming an adult, you're coming into your own, you're turning 21, you're a legal adult. It's a very special stage of life. And I had someone who was working against me. And I'm not saying everything was her fault, but let me tell you something. If you don't have a good social worker, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anything. You're going to leave foster care worse than when you came in. Your social worker is your first line of defense. Your social worker is your first advocate. Now, this is about how a social worker who was not good for me affected me. But I did have, a very good social worker. Her name was Hope. I had her when I was a child. I don't want to talk about Hope because I'm going to start crying. I cry every time I talk about Hope. I can't even get through it, and after I left foster care, I think Kaya was my coach after I had Malika as a coach. Not saying anything was wrong with Malika. Malika was great. I like Malika. Malika started the journey with me, but, she didn't finish it with me. Kaya picked up where Malika left off, but Kaya was just another defining moment. And it works like that sometimes. Sometimes you start working on a kid and you don't get to see the outcome. You don't get to be there. And I know Malika, when she left, she was very emotional about leaving because she had, she did some good. She didn't overstep her boundaries and stuff. Malika was cool. Malika helped me get into the dorm project. Malika was where she was supposed to be in that moment of time. And people are going to come join your journey when they're supposed to be a part of your journey, but everybody can't go with you. When it comes to having a social worker, though, you have to know the type of social worker you have. Do you have someone who is genuine about the work that they do? I feel like with my social worker, she was already like 10, 12 years in the game. She was burnt out. She could not do her job without getting emotionally affected. She was too attached to me. She was too attached. And it was that type of attachment like, oh, this is a problem because she don't have nobody. I want to be your only one. But if you care about somebody and you love somebody, you don't isolate them. You do not isolate them. How did that help me? And then when I think about what my agency did, they gave her no consequences. She got to retire. No one ever held her accountable. But I took all of that. I suffered a lot because I didn't have a good social worker. I didn't have that. The only person I had at that time, I'm not going to say her name because I work with her now, but she's the one who submitted my NYCHA application. And here we are, 7-8 years later, I'm still on the NYCHA list. I ain't getting no apartment. My first apartment I got, it was in Texas. And I was 27. So my message about the social worker, I know we went a little left, but you can always ask for a change in a social worker. If you feel like you have a case planner who is not doing their duties, the right thing by you, you have a right to change that social worker, and you should. I mean, it's great to have a social worker who understands the assignment and they go in and they work hard for their kids. But you have some case planners who are there to do more harm. But God had me. He had me covered. He sent me people when I needed them the most. Because I'm not going to lie to you. If I had never been in Felicia's house, I would have never understood the value of hard work and the value of independence and what it feels like to do something for myself and take care of myself. It's hard work, but nothing feels better than me knowing that, you know, I don't ever have to lose my self-respect or do anything or be in an atmosphere that I don't want to be in because I can't provide for myself. There's always a way out. But you have to be willing to work for it. And foster care is not everything. It's not the rest of your life. I'm going to end that video here because this video got kind of long. I'll be back with another video. I'm sorry I got emotional. But thank you guys for coming to the room. I really appreciate it. You know, be ready for the next video. And thank you guys. So I'll see you guys later, all right? Enjoy y'all day.